We're totally booked.
Rock and roll!
Well, I think I'll leave you to your reading.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Rock and roller!
We are totally booked.
Welcome back to Booked on Rock, the podcast for those about to read and rock. Online at bookedonrock.com. Every episode in both audio and video, exclusive video highlights from episodes, a blog, the latest rock book releases, and check out the all-new Booked on Rock store at bookedonrock.com. Our guest is John Lee Hooker Jr. He's got a book out titled From the Shadow of the Blues, My Story of Music, Addiction, and Redemption. The son of blues legend John Lee Hooker, best known for hit songs like Boogie Chillun, I'm in the Mood, and Boom Boom. John Lee Hooker Jr. was born in Detroit and exposed to the music world from an early age, singing as a featured attraction in his father's shows as a teenager. In 1972, he and his father performed live and recorded an album in Soledad Prison. Jr. seemed to have a golden ticket to a successful music career, but trouble brewed. His father's marriage was in trouble, and the family was ripped apart. Drug addiction and a series of related crimes, including as a con player, landed Jr. in and out of jails and prisons, including the infamous San Quentin, for 3 decades. Shot, stabbed, and convicted multiple times, Jr. was at his lowest point doing time at a Santa Rita jail, but he emerged clean and sober and began a successful career as a blues singer, earning 2 Grammy nominations and even opening for the Rolling Stones. The life of a blues musician had its rewards, but also its perils, and in 2019, Jr. decided to devote himself fully to his faith. Today, Reverend John Lee Hooker Jr. testifies, preaches, and performs gospel music in churches and prisons across the U.S. and Germany. A playlist of John Lee Hooker Jr. is in this episode's show notes. John Lee, I cannot thank you enough for being here. Thank you for...
I really appreciate your invite. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for the book, too, because we chatted a little bit before we started recording. I feel like this came along at a good time for myself and just looking at the big picture of life. And it's that big word of surrender. We all try to have complete control over all aspects of life, and you can't do that. You got to surrender to the higher power, right?
Exactly.
Well, we're recording this just 3 days before the release of the book, which is February 4th. You've told your story to churches and prisons around the country in Germany. How does it feel to be able to share this story now with the world through your book?
It is the ultimate answer to prayer. It is phenomenal because now I'm able to share my story in a different language, in German language, to prisoners. I went to the women's prison here in Vector, and I went to the large prison in Homefield and the small prison in Fulda. So it's a great feeling, and I just thank God for the platform, because on the platforms I can just tell what Jesus had done for my life. My life was a wreck. My life, I'm not supposed to be here. From my perspectives, especially from others, even my parents, well, we don't think you're going to be alive when you turn 23. And I wrote a song about that as well. But here I am telling my story, interview after interview, church after churches, going back to America, and I'll preach and testify in 4 churches there. I will be going to 4 prisons in Alaska in May on that tour. So it's just a blessing to go you through all the world and tell them about Jesus. That's what I do.
And the great thing about a book is it's going to live on after us. So it's there for people to read in the future. Let's go back to the past, go back to the early beginnings. Your dad, he was born in Mississippi Delta into a family of sharecroppers. He left home as a teen to try to make it as a musician. He went to Memphis, then to Cincinnati, and on to Detroit, where I believe you were born. And his first hit record, Boogie Chillun, was in 48. He became more famous in 62 with the song Boom Boom. More money comes his way, yeah, but he was far from living the wealthy lifestyle of a famous musician. You said the record companies took advantage of your dad?
You know, when you are growing up, you don't notice those kind of things, but after you mature and you're reading and your dad is ready to talk to you about things that are very important and to teach you from his mistakes, or not only his mistakes, but what people had done to him, and It was like one of those warnings, and this is what you don't do, and this is what you do going forward in your career. I was taught to always do things by paperwork, no shaking hands, no matter how they look and how they smile and how they laugh and what they may have. Get it on paper. And that was about it. Get it on paper. The scriptures teach that out of the mouth of two, let every word be established. Make sure he went there. Make sure you got a witness. And I live by that, and I haven't had any problems because I live by the contract. I live by two or more witnesses. And yeah, I watched him not get, but I've learned that he was burned by a lot of people who he thought that were his friends. But long story short, he got retribution, He sued companies, and I would ask him, why do you keep pouring all this money into this lawyer? It's been 3 years. He said, it takes time, but we're going to get him. And he got him. Got him. So he had to change his name several times because my dad he didn't know how to read or write. And I would oftentimes read his contract and say, this one here is okay. And yeah, this makes sense. And yeah, it's okay to sign right here. Yeah, we were partners, just like you and your dad. I took care of him, and he especially took care of me. Bernie Bestman, VJ Records, so many record companies had tried or did burn him. His setbacks became his mantle to go forward. He learned from his mistakes and taught us what to do and what not to do.
You mentioned my dad. We were talking about that too. My dad was a broadcaster and a writer, and he was very similar to the relationship you had with your dad, where just anything, we had so much in common. We were like best friends as much as father, son. And when he passed, it still is to this day. I think about him every day. But what's great with your story is that not only did he have a resurgence towards the end, but he saw you recover. And this is a great story. So we want to get to this now. You were born in Detroit, 1952, and you say that eventually you turned to drugs to escape the pain and hurt in your family. You dealt with racism early on, which sure was difficult. It was also hard to see your dad leave for the road. He was on the road a lot. But you later write about your mom's relationship with a neighbor, Bo Collins, that was the trauma that sent you down the path to drugs. And that really feels like the devil was at work there. Like he managed to infiltrate your family through this neighbor. It affected everybody. Can you take us back to that time and how difficult that was for you?
Well, I didn't learn of the infidelity until I was 10, 11. When my dad would leave, this gentleman would show up like he was the cat with the feathers hanging out his mouth. I don't kill birds, but he was a wolf in sheep's clothing. Let me just put it that way. That hurt. As a young boy, you recognize something is wrong because, two people who are, say, their husband and wife, especially your mom and your dad, something is not right here. And when I would protest, I would be chastised physically, and that hurt. Then to watch my dad leave and to know that the big bad wolf is coming as soon as he disappears, that hurt. And I think I became a little violent because when I would walk past the door to where I know they were, I would hit it so hard and walk, or not walk, but run down the stairs. And it was as if I was hitting him. And I noticed that I would say a curse word like, damn, bow. And it damaged me. It damaged me to where I didn't have my dad there to say, June, it's late. You're not going outside. And my mom wasn't there to tell me. She told me before she left, don't go there and don't go out and come back and blah, blah, blah. But I had to get away because I didn't like where I was living, and I didn't like what I was feeling and seeing. And there became the drugs. It was like a song I wrote. I put the drugs and the alcohol was like a Band-Aid over a bullet wound. It stayed there for a while, but when the drugs left or the feeling left, I began to bleed again. So that was trauma. Then I saw people shooting through our front doors, a guy by the name of Billy, just violence, physical violence in my house between my mom and my dad. But he never fought back. He just like defense, and sometimes defense you can get hurt. And I watched him get hurt. That broke my heart. It broke my heart to see him go on tour often. And
Yeah,
I
how
would
long was he on the road for? I was going to ask you that. It must have been most of the year.
yeah, sometimes for a month, sometimes for 3 weeks. I mean, 2 weeks seemed like 2 months to me. And I would hold his suits and cry. And they'd have to pull me off of him because when he said he was going, oh no, no.
Yeah.
I'll be back. I'll be back.
Yeah, and it's
He
so,
would explain that it's very important that I go so the bills can be paid. So
but at that age, how do you process that? You're not
Right,
really
right,
understanding
right.
any of it.
Yeah, and one thing led to another, the cigarettes, the alcohol, skipping school. I think you might read in there where I skipped school. I even, just to get some drugs, I even came back and broke in my school and came back again and broke into it. And that's when I was arrested. And that led to the Synanon, the cult that they flew me to, as opposed to sending me to prison for the first time. I violated that. I violated that twice. And then they finally sent me to prison at the age of 18, 18 or 19 years old. And a lot of stuff, Eric, a lot of stuff. I saw my friend, and I didn't see it, but I knew my friend, same age as I was, 17. We were in the county jail. He was raped. That broke my heart. I was raped. And I believe I was no, I went to court the following morning, but the grapevine coming through the courtrooms and whatnot is the whispers and the whispers and the whispers. Yeah, Shorty did this to Henry. So I see Henry on our way to court. Did he? And I was about to cry. I'm a kid. The same guy, his name was Shorty, came into my cell with a razor blade, Eric, and grabbed me here. Instincts. I grabbed him and I threw him up on the top bunk, pulled him back down, and I was just kidding. But I was ready to die. I was already so hurt because when you're a youngster in jail, you want to be with youngsters, and it's like a commonality and a camaraderie, yeah, us, because you have something in common. And to hear about this man doing this to another man, this older man doing this to another man, broke my heart. So I got all of this stuff from home, now all of this stuff in jail, and wow.
Yeah, that story's in the book.
Yes, sir.
That's in the
book. I look back, and sometime I tear up, but I look and see where God has brought me from. That part alone is to know that there was an attorney that asked my sister, how's your brother? He represented me every time I called him Larry, called the attorney. And he didn't see me for a while, and he asked my sister, where's your brother? She says, you wouldn't believe it. Junior is a minister now, and first thing he says, surely there's a God up above.
Oh, yes.
That's what I say to myself. I knew you. I didn't know it then, but now I know that you was carrying me.
Do you ever wonder why? Because some aren't fortunate enough to survive that. Some, their lives are lost before they can learn that. You ever wonder Why am I, given that gift to be able to have that time to turn my life around? And then you have friends that I'm sure their lives
Right.
were cut short.
Just last year, two of my friends gone as a direct result of the drug addiction. I don't know what was in the mind of God, why he chose me or why he didn't choose those people. But I know that I was a willing vessel. I know that I was a willing vessel. I used to walk, I used to do all my dirty work and drugs over in the Tenderloin in San Francisco. And at times when I was just down and out, because my family says, no, don't come here. We can't trust you. We don't know who you are. I used to walk the back street, and there's a song called uh, He Walked the Back Street and Cried. I actually walked down those alleys and cried and looked up to heaven and said, Lord, if you're up there and you can hear me, take this thing that's got me all messed up. Please take this away from me. And he did.
Booked on Rock Podcast. We'll be back after this.
We're going to take a break and be back.
Was there a moment, because I've seen it happen with people I've known where addiction starts fairly innocently or seemingly harmless. It's at a party, high school party or junior high party, and they try something out, maybe out of curiosity or peer pressure, and all of a sudden it's a years long, sometimes decades long, lifelong addiction. Was there a moment for you when you look back and say, boy, that was the moment I knew I was in trouble?
Yeah. And it wasn't when I took my first sniff of cocaine. Wasn't that? It was when I first stuck a needle in my arm. I had somebody stick the needle because I didn't know how. But after a while, I became addicted, and I knew that I didn't have the money in my pocket to feed or to get rid of the sickness that I had. And all of a sudden, there was the dog in me. I would steal from family, friends. I once tried to rob a blind man. It's in the book. And the blind man beat us up. He beat us up. But it's the dog, it's the fiend. That's when I knew that I was in trouble, especially when I didn't come home. That's when I knew something is wrong.
Yeah, and physically, that's the withdrawals, right? That starts to kick in.
Yeah, and it's terrible. It's terrible. Your bones, your nose, the bowels, the fever, the shakes, and everything. You'd be like, oh my goodness. I mean, you watched Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You watch the werewolf, the guy turned, Bela Lugosi turned into the werewolf. That's theater, but that's real in terms of a drug addict, in terms of a crack addict, in terms of a cocaine addict, in terms of any type of addict. It's a something inside, and they call liquor spirits, but it really is the spirit of the devil. Because I had been to 25, I don't know, so many drug programs. Like I said, even a cult. I went to so many programs. Psychiatrists, doctors, everything, rehabilitation centers. Nothing could help me. Nothing. Change of environments. Nothing could help me until a lady said one day when I was on my way to prison. Reluctantly, I went over with the gang members to the church because they was trying to maybe they could meet a girl. And the lady, just little small, but she says, if you are tired of being tired and you're tired of drugs, if you're tired of being homeless, if you're just sick or tired, I know a man that can break those chains. I know we can. And she said, and if you believe, and his name is Jesus, and she says, and if you believe that he can, got to be willing, and all the gang members stood there. Red Car Dave, Rubber Duck, all the big shots and pictures. I got up there with tears in my eyes. And she said, "What's your name?" I said, "John Lee." She said, "Brother John, raise your hands and surrender." And I raised my hands with tears coming down and she led me to the Lord.
That's
And,
the word, surrender. The boy, it's
I
one
surrender.
little word, but
That's
so difficult. So
That's
difficult. I think you have to get to that point, though, to surrender.
Exactly.
Yeah, my mom is listening to this, I'm sure, because she always listens to her son's podcast.
Hallelujah.
And she got me the Bible for Christmas, and this, I'm sure she's smiling listening to all of this because
What a gift.
she's
What
always
a
telling me about this. Yeah, you have to just you got to put your trust in God in Christ, because you can't control everything.
No, Jesus said
Things
in
are going to
John
happen.
15 Jesus said in John 15:5, "I am the vine and you are the branches. The vine apart from the branches, without me, you can't do nothing." And I know that as a fact that I can't do nothing without him. As a song says, "Without him, I am nothing. Without him, I would fail. Without him, I am rugged. I'm like a ship without a sail." And before I left America, my late pastor told me, he says, "Wherever you do, always make sure that Jesus Christ is the center of your life." And that's what I live by. Him being the center, him being the center of my everything.
One of the things I try to explain to my mom and folks like her, she comes from an era where she grew up, she didn't drink or do drugs, and she really doesn't understand why would you go to it. And I think one story, I think I've told her this before, the comedian Artie Lang, I remember once talked about when he did heroin for the first time. It felt so good. He knew, I'm screwed. I am screwed. Because that's something important to remember, because that's when all of the problems go away for an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. Like I used to go out drinking every weekend. I felt great, 2-3 hours. Then you wake up the next day and you're hungover, and now you got to go back
Band-Aid over a bullet wound,
and you got to wait
right.
until the next weekend comes around so you can do it again. Around and around you go. But that is important to remember, is that the temptation is an escape. It is a Band-Aid, as you say. That's the evil trying to pull you in, like, this is going to feel real good. Just do it.
Mm-hmm. Same thing he told Adam and Eve.
Right.
You won't die. He knows that the day that you eat of that apple, that you're going to be just like him. And that's how it is. Oh, you can shoot some drugs. You can take some drugs. You'll feel good. Oh, he was right. I do feel good. The after effects later on down the line.
You talk about breaking into the school that you were 17. And can you talk about why you did that? You were stealing something to sell it, I believe, right? Wasn't that the story?
Okay, well, I had cased the place out because I was in class, and I noticed that and that's when they came out with the what do you call it, IBM with the balls,
Right.
the round tapper, and the alarm was two little magnets up at the door, and back then all you had to do was just turn the lock on the top of the window. Turn the top of the window, and I turned it and made sure that it was unlocked it. And 11:30, late at night, I came back. I knew that the alarm would go off, and I climbed through the door, climbed through the window, took the typewriters, pulled them down by the cord, let them drop, took two, and ran to my little raggedy car and threw them in the back seat and drove off. Well, here's what happened, is that I came back again thinking that I could get away. And I came back again, but this time they were waiting on me. So the alarm was a silent alarm. It was not nothing, none of that. It was a silent alarm. And that was what deceived me. That's what deceived me, because it was a silent alarm. And when I pulled those typewriters back down there and climbed out the window. Police said, "Don't move." That's what happened. Yeah, to get loaded, to feed the monkey that was on my back, to feed that dog, that gorilla that was on my back. And I'm a young man. I'm young, man. I'm young. And it's crazy.
There's a story in the book of when your dad heard you singing for the first time. This is in 71. You were roommates with him. Was there ever a point before that when you felt...
Wow. Wow, yeah.
Was there a point before that, though, where you had a desire to be a musician? Did you have any idea that you had inherited your dad's skills?
No, you always, you know, your aunties and uncles are always, "Oh, you're gonna be just like your dad," and there's always that desire, because he used to not sneak me, but he used to always take me through the stage room door, and now you can't come out here. You can stay right there because I used to cry if I didn't go with him, and you just stay right here now. And I used to peek through the curtain and watch him, and people were just smiling and laughing and dancing and whatnot. And just watching him do what he did. Yeah, and one day I was in the bathtub, like you mentioned, we were roommates, and I had started singing in the bathtub, and he heard me. And I can make my voice go here, and I can make it roll. I did it kind of like immature at that particular time, but he heard the potential. He heard the potential. And he said, "Boy, you can sing, Jonah." "Boy, you can sing, boy." And I ain't joking. You can sing, boy.
He had a stutter, your dad, right?
He would call his people and say, "Boy, I heard that boy in the same, that boy can sing, Junior." Yeah, and one day, I think we were at the Keystone Corner in Palo Alto, and he had flew me in again because I was still on parole in Michigan, and he flew me in, and first time he says, I want to introduce my son on stage," and he would tell Gino, who was the bass player, Luther Tucker. He said, "Y'all bag Junior up now." And he, first time, carrying. I don't know what he meant by carry. What do you mean by carrying me? And got on stage, and for the first time, I'm like, look at all these people. And I had to look over at Luther Tucker, and when he would like that there, that meant that it was my turn to start singing. So I started singing. When Luther did this here, I started singing. And after I got off stage, it sounded like the people didn't clap their hands. They didn't give me a round of applause. So I felt really bad. My dad said, "Give me a round of applause." But that was my training, and one thing led to another, and on the field training helped me, and just listening to him. Sometimes we would be like us, we were roommates, and I would be in, we would play, and he just work with me. And do 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 do. He said, "But do you hear the downbeat?" I said, "I got it."
Boy, and he must have had some great stories to tell you from his early days. You know, that's the thing with music to me, is that's coming from somewhere up above. To me, I can't imagine a life without music. I am not a musician. I don't have that ability, but what music does for me, it's like I can get through any day if music's there. And I would think that you agree with that. Like, where does it come from? It's like a God-given gift, music.
It is. Music. I know music came from heaven because David was a musician. Angels are singing, and Scripture says, "Make a joyful noise unto the Lord." I will sing unto the Lord, and so music came from heaven, and inspired people to sing.
Booked on Rock podcast. We'll be back after this.
All his life as he looked away to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was.
Who were your favorite musicians growing up?
Well, I came up in the jazz. My dad was the blues, and I came up jazz. Cannonball Adderley, John Coltrane, Miles Davis. And as a young kid, I was listening to that. And the first thing I learned was how to scat. And that was with Louis Armstrong and Sammy Davis Jr. So I learned how to scat. Al Jarreau was a scat man. Then you had Scatman Scruthers. Don't know if you can Google it.
Oh, I've heard him. Oh, yeah.
Scatman Scruthers. So I grew up, Gil Scott-Heron.
Gil Scott-Heron. Okay.
So I grew up on these guys, and those were the original rappers. And I learned how to put words together. And most of my songs, I wrote all of my songs with the exception of being co-written by my friend Larry Batiste. But I knew how to put words together and to make them mean something. And my dad was a storyteller. His most often didn't rhyme. He just tell the story and he put some bam out and people, and then sometimes he growl, wow. My music, I was able to put together, make it rhyme and make it mean something. Yeah.
You toured with your dad. Every show, every city sold out. You opened with 2 or 3 songs, right? To pump up the crowd. But you weren't enjoying yourself. You sometimes cried in your room. Looking back, why do you think that was?
Because of, I think, my joy was not a clean and sober joy. My joy happened when I was under the influence. That's when I had joy. My joy was when I had money in my pocket, when I was loaded and I wasn't sick. And I enjoyed myself, but I enjoyed myself because I had a crutch. That's the only way I could enjoy myself. When I went to Canada with them, 27 days, I needed a crutch. I found where the drugs were. I searched and found where the drugs were. All I have to do is ask, hey, where they smoke marijuana at around here? Where they sell? They are down there. If there was some marijuana, somebody knew where some heroin was. Somebody knew where some cocaine was. Somebody knew. I needed to be fixed in order to function.
Chapter 14, titled The Con in Detroit, I'm Shot. This is like a scene out of a movie, only it really happened. Can you share this story?
I was a con artist, a manipulator, and I could shake. I don't have any cards here, but I could shake cards. I can move the greasy pig. That's the three tops with the P. They called it the greasy pig because he's moving around. But anyway, to make a long story short, I pretended I was a great impersonator. And I knew that the day was the first. And on the first, there's a check that most people get. It was called ADC checks. ADC checks. And you kind of like knew where they cashed checks at. And here was a lady coming around the corner. I think she had a child with her. And she had a shopping bag, which was an indication that she had been shopping. She got paid from her check, and I stopped her. I had a fake roll of money like this with a $2 bill on it, but you couldn't see that it was a 2 because I had my hand like this. I had a money wrap that said 10,000 that I got from the bank, and I just flashed it on. I said, ma'am, have you ever saw me do it? And to make a long story short, I let her win. I let her win $25. I said, was that a lucky guess or did you know all the time? Am I too fast? Am I too slow? Or are you just that smart? you're kind of slow. Anyway, I'm not going to go through the whole elaboration, but I put up the bankroll, but I wouldn't open it up. I would tell her, I bent the card, accidentally dropped it so that she could see that the bent card was red. So when I challenged her, right, with no money down, I challenged her to find the red card. Pow. She turned to one that was bent over. Bet you the whole $800 right now. Money on the wood make the bet good. You got to put it up. She put it up. I shook it. I made him act like I made a mistake. Dropped the red again so she can see it. Turned it back over. Shook. And I'm shaking. Double flash. But at the same time, when I feel it, I bend it here, bend another card, and unbend the red. So now the black card is bent. Double flash, I double flash, she see a red and she see another red. No, she see a black and she see another black. So the one that's here, right, is a bent card. She turned over the card that she saw bent red, she turned it over and she lost all of her money. She said, please give me my money back. I said, ma'am, you lost fair and square. And she started crying and she turned and went the other way and I went another way. I called a taxi on Jefferson and Montclair. Taxi! Jumped in the taxi. Here's how dumb I was. I went and got my heroin and cocaine and I came back to the same place, same street, knocked on the door so that I could shoot my dope, my heroin and my cocaine, and I'm going to spread. Because I got money, big money. The guy, I don't know, I forget his name. He opens the door, but he has this look on his face. And I walk in and the guy from her husband comes from behind the door and he's got a 38 pistol. Give me my wife money back. I said, man, I don't have no money. Give me the money back. I wouldn't get, and he shot me. Pow! I hit the floor. And everybody, like when I walked in, everybody is sitting at the table just like this. And that's when he came back. Give me the money. And he shot me. Pow. I fell and I crawled into a corner. Said, man, what are you doing? He said, give me the money back or I'm going to blow your brains out. So he put the gun to my head. And I'm covering like this. I said, I swear to God, I don't have no money. Do you think I would die over a few $100s? My life is more. And he pulled the trigger back and then put it back in and hit me. And I still have the scar right there. Wow. And he hit me over the head. He's trying to bust open my head, but I had my hands right here. And he broke this hand and he said, I ought to kill you. Now he's afraid now that because the loud gunshot. So he leaves. What do? I get up because I still got the drugs and I got all the money in my back pocket. That's how dumb I was. I leave that particular room and go next door, shoot my drugs, right? And have them call 911. They call the ambulance. I jump in the ambulance and they take me to the hospital, receiving hospital in Detroit. And that's how that went. But it was just, man. I did dumb things. He could have killed me.
But yeah, I was gonna say, even with your life right there, that moment, I'm gonna die right here. You still didn't say, here you go, here's the money.
Right.
Still stubbornly say, no.
Yeah. And I tell people, when I tell that story, I said, I know God just did like this here.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I would have thought that was the rock bottom moment, but that was yet to come. That you were shot, you were stabbed, convicted multiple times, but it wasn't until you were at Santa Rita jail, you hit rock bottom, finally found your faith and ultimate recovery. What was that rock bottom moment for you?
That rock bottom is, I mean, you've been homeless, you done cried in the back of the streets. You know, you can't call nobody that in your family, hey, nah, we heard that before. We don't know who you are anymore. We can't trust you. Nope. So I couldn't call anybody. And then I was arrested because I played the con game on a priest coming from the church, Catholic priest. And I pretended to be this man from South Africa. And I had a letter signed by Bishop Tutu. And I had the South African stamp in the corner. Make a long story short, it's in the book. I knew the scripture says, and your mama will attest to this here. God said, touch not mine anointed and do my prophets no harm. Jesus said these words, woe unto him who shall offend one of these little ones. For he would rather a milestone tied around his neck and cast into the sea than to offend one of my little ones. Right? I broke this priest that was on his way to the bank. I knew that I was going to get caught one day. And sure enough, when they arrested me, I didn't even complain. And that's when I met Sister Yancey. And that's when my whole life turned around. Don't get me wrong. I failed 3-4 times. And I always quote this scripture because it just applies, it's applicable to me because it says that a righteous man falls 7 times and rises up again. I wouldn't give up because I hated, and Paul said that the things that I wanted to do that was good, he said, I didn't do it, but that what I hated, that's what I did. And that's what it was with me. I hated what I did. But I had to do it.
Booked on Rock Podcast. We'll be back after this.
Well, we're waiting.
John Lee Hooker Jr., our guest, his book titled From the Shadow of the Blues, My Story of Music, Addiction, and Redemption. And it is out this week. I think it's important to talk about your setbacks because many addicts can give up after they go back at some point. So this is important. This happened 3 times for you after getting sober in 1998. How did you manage to get back on your feet that third and final time?
Well, it might have been 3.5, 4.
Yeah, more than 3. Okay.
There's a saying, and your mom and other people that's listening to it might remember that when you're level with the dirt, there's no other place to go. And I want to say this here, that I was conscious. I was aware that if I died, that I was going straight to hell. I knew that. But there is a saying that when through man's extremity is when God stretch out his hand to give you an opportunity. And his word says, I will not always strive with man. God's not going to keep on putting his hand out. And I took that opportunity. I says, Lord, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was at rock bottom. And guess what I did? I called somebody who birthed me. Mom, where you been? In the streets. All right, take a taxi and knock on the church door when you get here. And there was mama. There was my mom. Everybody else, my dad, nobody else. But my mother said, come on. And I was asleep in the back of the taxi because I'd been up 3 days. And the man said, sir, you're here. Walked to the church door, looked in, Mother Hooker here. Here she come. Paid the taxi man $45. She lived next door to the church. Go in there and get cleaned up and put these clothes on. So I think it was my niece. She's a big girl. Put on my niece big old shorts, and there was a slingshot and there was a shirt. And I took a shower and she made me a sandwich. I'm going back to church, and laid a blanket out with a pillow, and I was gone. And the rest is history. I never looked back. She nursed me back to health. Man.
And what year was that?
About 2000, something like that, 2000.
Well, we know that all this happened before your dad passed away, so he was able
Yeah,
to.
my dad.
That's huge, That's
Yeah,
huge.
my dad
When
said,
what about your mom? When did your mom pass?
she passed 9 years ago.
Okay, so she was able to also experience your recovery then.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Here's
How
what
great is that, right?
Here's what my dad said. He said, what I want is that before I go is to see you clean and sober. My mother came to my ordination because she used to always come to court and watch them send me to prison or visit me in the hospital. But my mother came to my ordination and watched me get ordained as a minister. And my dad used to always happily announce my coming. Reverend Junior is on his way. And when I come in, sometimes I'd have my collar on. Reverend Junior, I know. Come on in, have a seat, boy. Tell me about Jesus.
Well, I don't think you can even understate how important that must be for you, the peace that you have knowing your mom and dad. You had that completion with them before they moved on.
Yes.
Before they passed on and went to heaven, they were able to see their son.
Yes.
He's okay. He's
My
okay.
mom, I got to tell you this quick story. My mom was so proud, right?
I'm getting goosebumps here, John Lee, just thinking about it.
My mom told me one time, boy, look at you, Reverend Junior Hooker. You remember back when you was a young man, you remember you ran off with the rent money? And I'd say, yeah, Mom, but now I done bought you a home. That's all you own. Don't get smart with me.
Oh, man. I love it. It's an outstanding story. And then you had a one-on-one with your dad where he encouraged you to pursue a music career.
Yeah. And like I said, he gave me all the ropes. He came to, not only did he come to prison and do a show with me, he came to prison to do a show with me, but he used to come to my couple of my events and just sit there. Didn't say, just make sure the place was filled up, and then he would leave. Then sometimes you wouldn't even know he was there because he didn't want people, taking the focus off of me and putting it on to him. So he just come in, look, and tell him, no, tell him.
Incognito.
Incognito. But he's so recognizable.
That's what I say. How did he do that? Did he have to wear like hat and sunglasses and?
Yeah, that big hat and sunglasses, and you're bartender.
And your first album, Blues with a Vengeance. By the way, I put together a playlist of your music so people can click the link in the show notes. It's just great stuff. I was listening to it as I was reading the book and preparing the questions. So give it a listen. Your first album, Blues with a Vengeance, released in 2004, nominated for a Grammy Award and won the W.C. Handy Award for Debut Artist. Your third album, All Odds Against Me, released in 2008, also received a Grammy nomination. So a Grammy win is coming. I know. Talk about the songs that you write. You don't sing about money, women, and wine. Those are the usual blues.
Yeah, I quit that
subjects. So your lyrics are about your faith.
Yep. My producer, my co-writer who arranges my music, said, John, I call me Brother Rev. Brother Rev, if I was you, I would just keep, you got a unique sound. Even my dad said, nobody's got your sound. You are, you original, Then you got some haters that say, the only reason this is that is because his name is the one. But when you come to realize the Grammys only deal with authenticity. The Academy only want originals. They don't take no copy. You can't even sound like a little bit about somebody without, you know what I mean? And so I was nominated the first time, and 4 years later, nominated again. And I just love to write. I got a song coming up that's going to be released in May, and it's called Heaven Rules. You can say it's rap, but what it really is me preaching and doing some singing. Heaven rules. roofs with a background of about, well, they put 3 layers of a choir behind it, make it sound like it's 15 people.
When does that come out?
That comes out in May with the video. I'm gonna make sure that I send it to you also.
Well, I've got your email, so you could respond to mine and send it to me.
I sure will.
Absolutely,
I
man.
sure will.
You got a fan here. Booked on Rock Podcast. We'll be back after this.
Now you wait here. I'll be right back.
Let's finish with a great story. The story of you praying with Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. So the Rolling Stones, they're their own boss. You can't tell them, but you can also offer them some or offer them choices. Well, we got these people here that are available. I would love to think, that they said, we'll take Junior Hooker. Anyway, I received a phone call from my manager, Ron Kramer, because we were about to go and do a European tour. My European band lived in Berlin, and they asked me to stop over in Austria with my guitar player and open up for the Rolling Stones. You got to be kidding. Because I got a picture of my dad, right, and Keith Richards in my photo album, right? So I took that picture out and made sure I put it in my little briefcase and accepted it and went on stage, came back and got something to eat. So we're standing in the cafeteria and someone walks up and said, Mr. Hooker, Keith Richards would like to talk to you. Really? I mean, I wasn't going to say, can I meet him? Can I? Because I don't do that.
Yeah.
I know some people say, you mean you didn't go and knock on the door? No, it's just something about me that I just didn't. If you walk past me like Lenny Kravitz did, Lenny Kravitz walked, hey, Lenny, hey, John Jr., can we get a picture? Yeah, but I'm not going to say, knock on your door. And so, come on, and they escorted me. Come on, my guitar player, come on. Can I get my guitar? Come on, bring your guitar. Went over to his place. He was fenced in, can't get in there. This is in Austria. We went in, and Keith, when he saw me, he looked, by Jove, it's Junior Hooker. This is John's boy. Connie, you look just like your dad. And he was so playful that I was not accustomed to it because he was hugging me. Oh my goodness. And it just made me laugh because I never had anybody do that to me.
I've heard that about him. He's very down to earth.
Yeah. He told stories about him and my dad. And I remember the jacuzzi right through the sliding door, right there in the middle. Yeah, I was there. And John playing the guitar and I'm singing and just a lot of great stories. So I showed him the photo of him and my dad. I remember that just like I can remember my right hand. As a matter of fact, there's a couch just like that. And incidentally, it was a couch just like the one him and my father was sitting. And cameras are flashing, bam, 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 and we pose. So now it's time for us to go. And I asked Keith before I left, Keith, is it okay if I prayed for you before we left? And he ran back. You know what, Junior? By Jove, I need prayer. And everybody in the room, my guitar player, Jeffrey James, he quit talking because he wanted prayer also. And held everybody's hands. And I'm praying in the spirit, God, in the name of Jesus. And I can feel Keith, he's just looking at me. Because I look up and I talk to God and I can see Keith looking at me. Just looking. Finished praying and left out. And he says, by Jove, Junior, thank you so much for that. And your dad, I loved your dad. He was my friend. Nobody like your dad. He says, and listen, Junior, if we ever want to need you again, I know where to find you at, and that's in prison.
Keith's gotten himself into some trouble in the past.
Oh my goodness, we bust up laughing. We bust.
From the Shadow of the Blues, My Story of Music Addiction and Redemption. It's out on February 4th. You could find it wherever books are sold. Now, I know you have a website, but you could tell people about it. Where can people find you online?
Exactly. Follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, www.johnleehookerjr.com. If you drop the junior, you'll get my dad's website, his foundation. No problem. But if you would like to speak with me, look what we have online, our music, our catalog. It'll show you how to order the book with 4 distributors. And if you need to leave me a message or have some questions or just want to chat, go click on ministry and you can type a letter to me and I'll type you right back.
That's outstanding. I can't recommend this book enough to people, just as fans of music, but also just from a spiritual sense. If you are in a position where you really need some encouragement, this is the book to read. John Lee Hooker Jr., thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric. What a professional interviewer you are. You made me feel just so relaxed. And tell your mom, God bless her.
Yes, and I'm sure my dad's listening down as we speak. He's smiling, so thank you. And so is your dad.
Hallelujah.
Thanks.
God bless you, sir.
That's it. It's in the books.